welcome to My Familia Homeschool. Today we're going to be talking about poetry and poetry tea time. But before we get started, my name is Marissa and I live in Miami, Florida with my husband William and my two daughters Abby and Ellie. We are a family that has chosen homeschool as the way that we have decided to educate our girls. On this channel I love to talk about resources, curriculum, ideas, activities, and just everything homeschool mom and motherhood life. And so if that's interesting to you, if it sounds like that's up your alley, make sure to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and join us on this homeschool journey. So poetry tea time, that's something I've heard about quite a lot within the homeschool community, but it wasn't something that I really understood. It sounded kind of fancy, it sounded kind of complicated, it sounded like it involved a lot of cooking. As a homeschool mom, a working mom, a ministry mom, those extra things don't feel like they fit in my schedule. But I've discovered that it doesn't have to be quite so complicated. So this whole poetry tea time idea started last year in November. We went to visit my parents in Kansas and went to my grandmother's house a couple hours away to celebrate Thanksgiving and also my oldest daughter's 5th birthday. My grandma has tons of really fun knickknacks, and so she had some little teacups that the girls had so much fun playing with. There were some gnomes too. It was the cutest thing. I got the cutest pictures. But anyway, so there were these little teacups and they loved playing with them. They played in that room, in the little sunroom with the little teacups for hours. It was so much fun to see. And that same day I got on Amazon and started looking for tea sets for Christmas because I knew it was something that my daughter would love. I found a little metal one because I was like, porcelain is not for us. I'm not about that life. So I got a little metal tea set and gave it to my daughter for Christmas. As soon as I picked it out, I was like, poetry tea time, we've got to do this. When she opened her present, she was super excited. She said, Mom, can we have a tea party? And I was like, of course we can. So I got some poetry books from the library. We invited some of our little friends. We went to the park because, like I've talked before, we have a smaller space, and so a lot of our activities like this, we do them outside of the home. It's just easier that way. And so we invited our friends, we went to the park, and we had our first poetry tea time. I posted a video on my Instagram, and so if you want to check it out, if you want to see what it looked like, look us up as My Familia Homeschool, and you can check out one of our newest reels, and you can see how our first poetry tea time went. So we get to the park that day, I set up a picnic table, I get some apple juice because I don't really like tea, so we did apple juice, put some apple juice in the little teacups, we got some little macaroons, we just got them from Target. I didn't make anything, but it was simple and they had so much fun. I found several different books at the library and you can check those out. I also posted a reel about our different poetry books that we used on my Instagram, but one of my favorites that I ended up finding on eBay and buying are the A.A. Milne poetry books. They are so much fun. So this one that I ended up buying after reading the one at the library has all 4 of his different books. So it has the 2 that are stories and the 2 that are poetry. But this was probably my favorite book to introduce poetry to my girls. It's super fun. It's super fun for me to read, and I could tell that they really enjoyed it. So we had our tea, we had our snacks, we read our poetry, we went on a nature walk, and it was so much fun. But as I was planning this, poetry tea time activity, I started wondering why. Why do we do what we do? Why is poetry beneficial? We hear it all the time that poetry is a good idea, but I like to know the why behind what I'm doing. And I found some really great reasons for poetry, great benefits for teaching our kids poetry that I'm going to share with you right now. So first of all, poetry builds early literacy. Poetry, the rhythm, the rhyme is so good for helping kids learn those early literacy skills. Poetry is also great for developing those memory skills. Nursery rhymes are great ways to help kids learn how to memorize. And it's super fun too. Poetry encourages kids to play with language and words. It helps them see how sentences are built in different ways within a poem, and when they're writing poetry, they're doing the same thing. Poetry is also great for emerging readers. A lot of times reading a poem is not as intimidating as reading a book. The rhythm helps them to figure out the words that are coming up. Poems sometimes are shorter and sweeter than big books, and so it's easier for them to get started with. Poetry gives kids a great creative outlet. When kids write poetry, they're able to put their feelings, their thoughts, their opinions in this poem that they're writing. And lastly, poetry is fun, and oftentimes it's funny. That A.A. Milne book that I was telling you about, it's so funny. It's something that is enjoyable, and it's a great way to get kids hooked on literature. For some reason, growing up, I always had the idea in my mind that poetry was boring, that it wasn't something to get excited about. But as I've looked into different books, there really are some great poetry books. So some ways to bring poetry to life for kids is to find some books that they really love. The A.A. Milne one is a great one, but I know there's so many out there. So experiment, look around, check them out at your library, and find some ones that you enjoy reading. Normally, if you enjoy reading it, your kids are going to enjoy listening to it. Another great way to really get everything out of a poem is to read it several times. Pick one or two and read them several times over and over. Talk about it with your kids. Talk about what they think it means, what they think the words mean, what they like about it, how it sounds. Now, as I was looking into this poetry tea time, the whole idea started with Julie Bogart. I'll leave her information below, but the whole idea is about slowing down, about taking time together, about doing something different, and about enjoying great literature. And all that sounds really great to me. So let me know in the comments, how do you use poetry in your homeschool? Have you ever done a poetry tea time? I'd love to hear about it. Leave me a comment below or find me on Instagram, My Familia Homeschool, and send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. If this video was helpful, if you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up and subscribe so you can join us next time with My Familia Homeschool.